You're listening to Every Day's a Saturday USMC Veteran Podcast.
Now introducing your host of Every Day's a Saturday USMC Veteran, the one-man show, Brian Roof.
What's going on, friends and family? Thank you guys so much for tuning in to another great day, another great interview. And let me tell you guys what, you guys are in store for a great one today. This dude is, my gosh, an amazing American hero in my eyes. Just a busy man, in his last name is Mann. So we're going to get to meet an amazing human being. He's a Navy SEAL. He's adventurer. He's a author. He's a lot of things, but we're going to let him talk all about himself. And here's the great man himself, Don Mann.
Hey, Brian. Hey, thanks so much for having me on your show. It's a pleasure.
Hey, it is my pleasure to have you on. I think you are probably the first Navy SEAL I've ever had on the show. I've had a couple special forces, but no one as unique as the Navy SEALs. I've always had an intrigue. I've always had the most up respect for Navy SEALs, and I love the training, the sheer. I mean, you guys have a drive like no other. But I'm going to go ahead and let you talk more about yourself and let us know, where you grew up, what made you actually join the Navy, and how did you end up becoming a SEAL, and what great things do you got going on now?
Well, Brian, you're very humble because you're a Marine, and a Marine, that's some of the toughest training in the United States. So for what you just said, I take it as a compliment coming from you. But the SEALs, the Marines, the Special Forces, we have a lot of great units in our country. And it's, one team, one fight, right? We're all fighting for the same mission. We all have similar training in some ways and some not. But I love the training I got as a Marine when I was a corpsman with the Marines. And I love the training I received as a SEAL as well. It actually shaped my entire life. And I think at a young age, I needed that. And I went to the Marines first. And it just changed my life in a very positive way. And, yeah. But I was a young kid without any direction, really. My father was from the Greatest Generation, and when we were attacked Pearl Harbor, he and his two brothers and sister all joined the military to go fight for the country. My grandparents had the 4 stars in front of their door, and my uncle was shot down and prisoner of war for quite a while after he was captured and pitchforked into the ground, and he survived it. But my father is a very patriotic man. So is that whole family. And so even without knowing it, I was instilling this patriotism from inside me. And I love the physical fitness part of the military. And I wanted to travel and I wanted to do something very exciting. And then with the patriotic part, finding the Marine Corps, then the SEALs, I'm blessed to have found the perfect thing for me at that time. And there was nothing before, since, or during that time I would have found anything I would have rather have done. It was just perfect. I'm very grateful to have found the military.
Yeah, I mean, you know what though? There's a big difference between joining and just getting in, doing a different job, MOS, than going into deciding you want to be Special Forces, where you're literally putting your life on the line, just training. I mean, just doing training. I mean, you guys' training is so hard and because it has to be, right? Because you guys are put up against some of the most unimaginable situations. But what actually drove you to want to go into being a Navy SEAL, and what drove you to actually like, hey, I want to do something bigger and better?
Boy, I have the answer for that question, because when I first saw the recruiting video of BUDS, Basic Underwater Demolition SEAL Training, and SEALs, when I saw these guys skydiving, working out, and going through Hell Week, and running on the beach, and shooting, skydiving, and diving, I was thinking, my God, that is all I want in life. And really, what made training easier for me than if I hadn't found this philosophy. And that was not to have a plan B. You're going into buds to finish. Don't have a plan B. You have only one thing you can do, and that is finish. Because a lot of the, you start with a class with a couple hundred people and you graduate 20 or so people. And a lot of those people who quit, they had these backup plans like, yeah, if this doesn't work out, maybe I'll go be a pilot or a cook or something. And they had backup plans. So when you're being tortured there with a physical fitness, you could start thinking how nice that backup plan is going to be compared to what you're going through. And so I think the best advice I gave myself at the time is not to have a backup plan, and that other people have done it. And because other people have done it, I know I can do it. And to have the mindset, that combat mindset, that people have gone through so much more in life and in struggles and in wars than going through 6 months of training. I mean,
Right.
nobody's shooting at me. All it is training. I can do it. And then the thing that helped me the most, I think, Brian, was a visualization. Every day, for years, for 4 years, I did this. I would picture how every day, how difficult it would be, and how those long, cold swims up to 6 miles long in the middle of the night would be, and diving under ships in pitch black, and just the PT and the sleep, going 1 week without sleep during Hell Week. All of that, I visualized how bad it would be. And I did a great job of the visualization, because every day during buds, I'd get home or to my rack in the barracks, and I'd think today was really tough, but not nearly as tough as I thought it was. Today was easier than I thought it was because of that visualization. And it helped me getting through buds and climbing mountains and doing these other things, because I visualized that it was going to be much, much harder than it was. And when you go into SEAL training, into buds, there's a big frogman statue. And it says, the more sweat and tears you put into training, the less bloodshed in wartime. So the harder you trained, in my point of view, the harder you visualize something makes the training all the easier. The harder you train makes the combat and the war and the real work all the easier. And that's those are simple philosophies, but it got me through it all, I'm sure.
Right. Now, what would you find as like what was the most challenging part for yourself in terms of while you were going through it, you were like, wow, this is really pushing me to a point of I feel like I might either die or pass out. What do you remember at that point in time? What was the hardest part of training?
I think I do, because when I competed in a lot of competitions as part of my preparation to get ready for buds, and I competed in over 1,000 events, endurance events,
Wow.
marathons, ultra marathons, Ironmans, triathlons, 50-mile runs, climbing mountains. I did all these type of things because I thought every time I do something like that, I'm training to be better prepared for buds. But the one thing I was not prepared for were those cold swims, because I was really lean from all the sports I was doing. I was training 4 to 8 hours every day, 7 days a week. That was more important to me than anything, preparing for buds. And so I was really lean. I take a breath and you just see veins and arteries in my chest. I was
Yeah,
lean.
right.
I
Yeah.
was always cold. But going in those long swims, there were times I knew I wasn't ever going to quit. But there were times I was thinking, I hope I just pass out so they'll pull me out of this ocean and let me warm up. I can't quit. But it's so hard to swim when your teeth are chattering and your whole body's shaking and you're still trying to swim. So that was the hardest part with the cold swims. And I
Yeah, and
still
you
don't.
guys are it's right in the Pacific, right? I mean, and that's the water's freezing. What time of the season were you guys training
Well,
during
we
in that
started
water,
in
the cold
March
swims?
and we finished in December. But the thing is, the buds instructors are really, really good. Even though it is the Pacific and it could be colder in different North Sea, for instance, the Atlantic,
Sure.
it could be colder, but the Pacific, even in Southern California, the longer you're in it, the worse it is. And so the winter time swims like January, February, those months, they keep you in the water less than they do in the spring and summer months. But I was there spring, summer, fall, and winter because you do pre-training and then we graduated in December, so we had a couple cold months. But they just keep you in the water longer when it's not as cold outside. So they have their own techniques to keep you cold.
Yeah, but what is that, like a 9-month training
Yeah,
for this?
they call it 6 months,
6 months,
but
but
it boils down to really the whole pipe stream, the pipe stream now getting into it's over a year long, a year and a half now, with a pre-training, the introduction of they have different phases now, all before you step foot to start phase one. So there's a lot of preparatory training and post-training you do afterwards. And then when you're all done, you have a year of advanced SEAL training to go through. So it
wow.
really, the training never stops, like in the Marine
Right.
Corps, never stops until you go to war or battle somewhere. And then you come back and you train, you do things better than you did. Maybe you made some mistakes. Maybe some people were hurt or killed. You write your standard operating procedures, your SOPs, and you said, okay, we will never do a room entry that way again. From now on, we're going to do this instead. And you change your tactics, you change your SOPs, and then you train and train and train and rehearse your new way of doing things, as an example.
Right. And isn't it crazy that you can train for something 1,000 different ways, and then when you go into it, it's the 1,001 way that it happens, right? You know what I mean? Like the one you didn't prepare for, or you're like, I mean, you can never really train for exactly what's going to happen. But I mean, you guys do a extensive amount of different scenarios over and over and over and over, right? I mean,
We do. And the scenario-based
muscle
training,
memory type stuff. Just
yep.
yes.
For instance, if I had to go clear this room real quickly and I had a weapon on my side, I would not have to ask myself, what do I do? I would know what to do.
Sure.
But then what would happen inside are the unknowns. But what's really good about the SEAL team, SEAL community, is they teach you to think about what you don't know about, the unknowns. And we call it contingency planning. And so you can think on your feet real quickly, because basically every mission is something different than the mission before it.
Sure.
Every training scenario, we do scenario-based training where all the training is nothing's like the one before, So you have to see how these guys think on their feet and react. And pretty much anybody could do a step-by-step procedure if they study it and rehearse it over and over and over. But when it's dynamic and there's people moving and you're moving and there's smoke and there's flashbangs and flash crashes going off and the sniper fire and there's a helicopter crash, when all these things come out of the blue that weren't in the plans, you have to think on your feet real quickly and adjust and move.
That's amazing. Now, how do they determine the SEAL team 1 to, all the different, SEAL teams, there's, I don't know how many different teams there are, but you always hear about SEAL Team 6, primarily because of Osama bin Laden. I know you were part of SEAL Team 6 at one point in time as well. But how does that actually go? Is it based off of where they go in the country to support, or certain level of expertise?
Yeah, you can't just go to BUDS, get out of BUDS, and go to SEAL Team 6. That takes some time to get to 6.
Okay.
But
Oh, right.
when you get out of BUDS, it's changed a little bit with the last 2 wars. But when you got out of BUDS, when I went through, there was SEAL Teams 1 and 2. Then there's this mysterious undercover team that nobody knew about, not even the SEALs, called SEAL Team 6. That was so secretive, we never knew what they were doing. They had long hair and beards, and they didn't look like they were in the military. They didn't act like they were in the military. But that's what they were supposed to be, the gray man,
Sure.
But back then we had underwater demolition teams, which they go through all the same training at BUDS. But after BUDS, you either get assigned to one of the underwater demolition teams or to SEAL Team 1 or to SEAL Team 2. So there were 4 underwater demolition teams and 2 SEAL teams that you could go to right after BUDS. And all the odd numbers, SEAL Teams 1, 3, 5, 7, everything odd is on the West Coast out in Coronado. And all the even-based teams are in Virginia, outside Norfolk, Virginia Beach area. And SEAL Team 6 was not talked about. In March of '83, all the underwater demolition teams became commissioned to SEAL teams. So now instead of just having 1, 2, and 6, now there's 1, 3, 5, and 7 over there, and 2, 4, 8, and 10 on the East Coast, and 6 was still mysterious and out there somewhere. And that's how it was. But once you did so many deployments, proved yourself among your peers and your leaders, and you wanted to go to 6 and you wanted to interview for 6, and you're showing that you're worthy to go, then they send your paperwork to 6, and 6 looks at your paperwork. And if they want to talk to you or interview you, they come to your team, and it's an intimidating interview. You're being grilled by some very serious SEAL Team 6.
Kind of a
Like,
panel. You got
yeah,
probably several people up there, just probably nice and decked out with medals
not
and ribbon.
really.
And
No,
no, they're
just like
just looking regular old.
civilian clothes. Like, who
Oh,
the heck do you think you are trying to get into our team? How
right.
can you make
Okay.
that any better? Yeah, they
You're
don't
like,
care
damn, you're
about.
talking to CIA or something, huh? Shit.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah. Because I did
Jeez.
that too. It wasn't anything like even worse. But anyways, then if they want you, they pluck you from the team you're at, and then you go to 6. And then when you go to 6, after you've done buds and all the other stuff you did at the other SEAL team you just came from, you start all over, because then you go to this thing called Green Team or Green Squadron, and it's like an advanced buds. It's not as physical, but everything is harder and more dangerous. And you do that for another 6 to 8 months. And you're all ears. You don't speak or anything. All you're doing is learning from these very experienced veterans. And then you get to an assault squadron. We used to call them teams. Now they're called squadrons. And they're color coded. They're blue, gold, red, silver, or black. And they kind of had certain personalities, each squadron. And you get picked based on your personality. And then you get to that squadron, you've got years as a team guy, you've gone up the ranks, you've got seniority, you've people respect what you've done. But now you don't even open your mouth at the new squadron. You're brand new and you're there to listen and learn. And then you start over, going up the ranks again. So this process makes a lot of sense. Although, if a young junior guy came to the team and he was going to voice his opinion, everybody's all ears to hear it. But most likely, he might have an idea that would work. But most likely, everybody sitting around the room um, will give him thumbs up or thumbs down real quickly, because they've
Yeah.
been there
Wow.
and done that. Yeah.
My gosh, man. That I've always been intrigued with, like I said, with the whole process. I mean, this is even more that you don't hear about, which I'm just like, oh man, I could eat this all up. But do you recall the first time you got a set of orders and and you were like, oh shit, it's time to, this is real. It's go time. I mean, do you remember that point in your time?
Oh yeah, yeah, and it really wasn't even that formal, because a lot of things they don't really put in writing at the shooter's level when you're an assaulter. Um, Really, what happens is you get recalled. The way it happens, you get recalled middle of the night, 2 a.m., 3 a.m. You had to live
Mm.
within an hour away from the team, but you had to be at the team area within the hour. So if you got recalled, you lived 60 minutes away, you were in your vehicle that minute. There's no like, oh,
Right.
let
You
me get my
rolled out of the
coffee.
rack and yeah, you're ready to roll. Yeah. On
So we
call,
all
man.
try to live 15 to 20 minutes away, and
Sure.
you're always ready to be recalled, and you wanted to be recalled. You really wanted to go where the
Right.
action was. It's how you were brought up and what you trained for, and you're ready to go. But at 6, it's a little different, because I didn't fully answer your other question, but when you were on the West Coast, SEAL Teams 1, 3, or 5, you're pretty much doing a lot of desert work, desert operations,
Sure.
desert missions,
Got
and
you.
then, of course, Iran, all the desert ops. If you were at SEAL Team 2, it used to be Europe. If you were brown colored, brown skinned, and you could fit in Central South America and you graduate buds, you usually went to SEAL Team 4. So,
Mm.
and then SEAL Team 8 was the Med. It did had different geographic parts of the world. Depending on the team you're assigned, you deploy to these different geographic parts of the world. The other great thing about SEAL Team 6, it just had a worldwide capability. For instance, SEAL Team 2 was a winter warfare most experienced team.
Got you.
But when you're at 6, you do winter warfare 2, you do urban warfare, jungle warfare, desert warfare, all over the world. You had a worldwide commitment. So when you got recalled in the middle of the night, whenever it was you got recalled, within 1 hour, you've got a report. You run into your team room. Up on the board, it says, for instance, desert op, hostage rescue. You run over to your cage. Everything's so organized and ready to go. You take the things that might be specific to that mission. You run over to the pallet, come to the team room, and make sure there's no additional information. There's nothing long, prolonged, and thought out, really, for most of these. You put your stuff on the pallet, and then within 4 hours of getting recalled, those wheels, because it's a tier one, you have to do this as being a tier one unit. Those wheels have to be off the ground. That plane has to be en route to that country.
Wow.
So, and then you have to be ready for all types of environments at any country in the world at Team 6. So it's a worldwide capability. And that means you have to be ready for urban warfare all the time, desert warfare, Arctic warfare, mountain warfare, jungle warfare, desert warfare. You have to be ready for all of that. And of course, as you know, you and I both know, the world is constantly changing, and you always have to stay tuned to what could come up next.
Sure.
And no lying, I'm not lying about this. This is the truth. When something was heating up somewhere in the world, you got excited. Oh, good, maybe we can go there. It's just how we all thought.
No, right. I get it. Yeah. I mean, you train, right? And you want to test your training out. I mean, I get it. We all, I mean, if you served, you kind of get it. Some people may not understand it, but
I would like to add one thing to that, Brian, though, so I'm talking about that era. So it'd be wrong for me not to say what I'm about to say. So then 9/11 happened, we were struck and towers came down and all. We had such a mass group of people come into the military and all the services. And they didn't get to be in a position where they'd say, oh, I can't wait to go somewhere. Can't wait to go to war, because they were in back-to-back wars, some of them for the whole adult life. Some of them spent 20 years of their life. I've heard of people, talk to people who've done over 10 combat deployments, but one did 16 combat deployments. And so what that does to the psyche, to the mind, to your heart, to your body, to your soul, it tears your body to pieces, of course. But who has been, no Americans ever have been around combat and fighting and killing and dying nonstop for over 20 years? That's never happened before to Americans. And that's what happened to us. And the tier one units, not just SEAL Team 6, or not just the SEALs, but the Marines, Special Forces, the Rangers, the PJs, CCT, a lot of tier one forces and forces that weren't tier one, they all went through this nonstop. And what does that do to someone's psyche? I mean, you're seeing the repercussions now where all the suicides and the drugs and the drinking, it's not because they're weak people by any means. It's because they gave and gave and gave and gave and never would say no to a mission.
100%. Yep. And yeah, man. And that's the hard part is we need people in the world to go and do that. Right. It's just that a lot of guys struggle once they get out and how to handle it, because they were a part of something and they felt like they were something, and then they get out and they're removed from that, and then they kind of feel disconnected, right? And start to not feel like they have that purpose anymore. But yourself, obviously you've kept yourself. Have you done a lot of mental health stuff with yourself and talking to people, or how have you kind of managed through it, processing, just through training as well? Because I feel like a lot of the SEALs typically have really great heads on their shoulders, and I mean, you guys see some of the worst.
Well, Brian, so when I got out, I mean, I didn't have a plan what I was going to do. I ended up going to the CIA, but I went to CIA and I deployed for a good 20 years with CIA.
Wow.
So I was just going to these places, Iraq, Iran, Somalia, Yemen, all these places. But some of it was full-time, some was part-time. And I saw a lot going on in the world, but it was my hobby and my interest in what I wanted. And when I wasn't doing that stuff, I was climbing mountains. I was trying to climb Mount Everest. I was doing these 10-day adventure races. And my friends would say to me, veteran friends would say, have you been checked out yet for PTSD? I said, I'm fine. They said, no, you got to go checked out. No, I'm fine. I'm really fine. I'm out climbing mountains. I'm fine. They said, do us a favor, get checked out. I went 20 years without getting checked out. And the reason is, and this is not something a lot of veterans will want to hear, but the reason is okay, my father's generation, World War II, they all jumped aboard to go to fight for our country. They saw the worst atrocities ever. They come
100%.
home and they go right to work. No complaining, no whining, no. My father was injured. He broke his back. And so many times I just see him laying down on the ground at my house. I said, Dad, are you okay? He said, I'll be okay. And up till the day he died, he was in a lot of pain. I said, Dad, you got to go to the VA. He said, no, that money's for people who really need it. And that's the attitude that I took on, because if I could be doing these things that I like doing, the physical things, I don't need assistance from the VA. I don't need to be placed under an umbrella, this big, giant, huge umbrella, which I think anybody in the world can fit under it now. It's so big. To say
Sure.
I've got PTSD and I need help. I know there are veterans who need it. My God, I have a good friend, one of the most respected and experienced SEAL Team 6 guys I ever worked with. He lives in his car right now because he's scared to death to leave his car. Another friend of mine, when he stands in your house, he'll stand against the wall like that so sniper fire can't come through the windows.
Shit.
A lot of my friends committed
Bad.
suicide, drinking and drugs, or the hose in the car. We had a commanding officer commit suicide. So there's a lot of people who need it, but I just didn't class myself as a person who needed it. And if I did need it, I was getting it through my own, if I want to call it therapy, by going out there, pushing myself in the outdoors. It was my own therapy. So I believe a lot of people need it. I also believe the people who take advantage of it, it's a sin to be doing that, because those resources can be put more toward the people who really need it. And I just wasn't one of those people. And I wasn't at war back to back for 20 years nonstop. Other guys had been, and other ladies too.
Yep, 100%. What it sounds like too for you, it doesn't sound like you just went home, sat in your garage, or soaked in yourself. You went out and did things. You kept yourself busy, and a lot of people do that for their own therapy, right? In general, and do that stuff. You were already basically doing your own therapy on your own by hiking and doing things that you loved. And I'm sure, those moments you were in your head, when you're hiking, there's things you could think about a lot of times,
Mm,
because, you're kind of an individual climbing up that. I know you try to go up Mount Everest, and I did see that they had to bring in the chopper to, you had lung issues,
yeah,
huh?
I lucked out there. Boy, I came that close to not coming home from that one.
Oh my
But
gosh.
it was something I
You
chose to do, and I've
right, man. That's big time. I mean, I, not there's what how many people have climbed Mount Everest? I mean,
quite a
there's
few,
quite a few now. I mean, now there is,
Yeah.
but still, if you were to put it up against how many people in the world, I mean,
Oh
not a
yeah,
lot of people have done it.
it's a small percent who've made it to the top and back down. But there's also about 225 bodies up there that are frozen in
Mm,
place.
right.
Like, you make a right at Green Boots when you see him, and you put a flag or a tarp over his body. And what I got was called HAPE and HACE, high altitude pulmonary edema and high altitude cerebral edema. And it comes out of nowhere. Nobody knows why people get it, or when they're going to get it, or who's going to get it. And I was the oldest guy on my team, and the rest of my team was saying, "Man, you're in good shape. This doesn't bother you, does it?" I said, "Knock on wood. I am so happy to be here, and I feel great." Actually, one guy, I had to carry his backpack for 10 days because he couldn't carry it. He was so out of breath, and he made it to the top. So you just never know who it's going to hit. But when I got the high altitude pulmonary edema and cerebral edema, it happened at the worst place on Everest, the most dangerous place, called the Khumbu Ice Falls. And there's all these aluminum ladders that stretch anywhere from 16 to maybe 50 feet across, these deep, deep, deep crevasses that go like to the center of the earth, or you're climbing them. And you're out of breath, and you're trying to get your breath, and you're climbing these vertical ladders or crossing these horizontal ladders. And at one point, I was climbing this vertical ladder, and it got really dark. And I was wondering why it got so dark. But then every time I put my head down, fluid just came out of my nose and my mouth. And then
Oh,
I started coughing a lot and I couldn't catch my breath. Then I lost my memory. I didn't know where I was and I didn't know why I was on a ladder.
oh
And I
no.
got to the top and I collapsed, I went unconscious. And Andrzej Dorje Sherpa, the most famous Sherpa in the world, was on our team. He was a hero of Into Thin Air, that movie in the books. And he's summited Everest 17 times. He saved so many lives up there. And he saved a lot of lives who had hape and haste, like what I acquired. Like, boom, I got it. And when I woke up, I saw him looking down. He says, "Can you get up? Here's my oxygen." And he gave me his oxygen mask. And I put my hand on his shoulders. I was walking behind him, but I kept collapsing and passing out. And finally, we got to this 200-foot vertical ice wall, and I couldn't speak because I was coughing and choking so much. And he said, "Can you rappel?" I remember thinking, what a ridiculous question. I've rappelled all my life. Of course I can rappel, but I couldn't say all that. I just
Right.
shook my head. And he rappelled. I had my harness on. I grabbed the rope and I had my rappel device. And I was thinking, I don't remember how to rappel. I forgot. I lost my memory. And it was dark, but it wasn't really dark. The pressure on my brain made it appear dark. I lost my color vision. I lost
Wow.
my memory. The pressure on my lungs was allowing me not to be able to breathe or get oxygen. So everything was going away pretty quickly. And I didn't remember how to rappel, but I did see some Sherpas that day wrap the rappel line across around their arm like 8 or 9 times. And they'd go off the cliff, just releasing one loop at a time. So I remembered that. And I said, that's all I have. That's what I'm going to do. So I wrapped the rope around my arm a bunch of times and just went down that cliff, releasing one loop at a time. And
Oh
just
wow.
by the grace of God, I made it all the way to the bottom. And then the doctor came and she said, "You're not going to make it. I mean, if you can get off today, right away, you might be able to make it." Because my lungs were just 3/4 filled with fluid, and I was drowning in my own lungs, fluid.
Wow.
And then so they went out trying to get a helicopter, but of course, like most Everest stories, a storm came in, and the helicopter couldn't make it in. And I didn't want to just bother people by coughing and choking all day and all night. So they put me in a tent quite a ways away from everybody, which happens. You do that till the person stops, and then, but
Mhm.
they came back the next day, say, "Helicopter can't make it. Sorry, sorry." I just didn't comprehend it all at the time, but then the helicopter made it in the next day, and I was able to get out, and I'm still recovering. This was over 5 years ago now. I'm still
Wow.
recovering. Yeah, I've got scar tissue in my lungs from the fluid that built up, and my memories. It surprises me what I can't remember. It's sad in some ways, but in other ways, every now and then I'll remember something. Go, wow, I can't believe I remember that, and I'm kind of proud of myself.
Yeah.
So,
Oh,
but
I came
Brian,
back.
if I can say, part of that sounds good, some sounds bad. In my mind, the good way outweighs the bad, because I don't want to go to my deathbed always saying, "I wish I did it. I could have done it. I should have done it." At least I went out and went after it. My body failed on me. I didn't quit. My body failed. And I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that. If I don't get any better than I am now, I'm still doing all the things I like doing. It's just slower.
Right. So let's go. I guess we'll back up a little bit more back into your SEAL days. Now, how long were you in the actual Navy in the SEAL, and how long did you actually do that? And before you ended up hanging it up?
So it was a
Well,
year
not
and a
SEAL. You
half.
never hang it up, really, but
Well, it was a year and a half with the Marines and off and on doing shifts. You do that shift work too with the hospital. And then the next, I went, it's 21 years total. So just under 20 years with the SEALs, SEAL Team 1, SEAL Team 2, and SEAL Team 6.
so were you a corpsman? Actually, was that your MOS in the actual Navy? Is a corpsman?
Yep. Well, I
Okay.
went to 6 twice. I was a corpsman and enlisted man as a Navy corpsman when I was with the Marines as a corpsman and went to
Right.
SEAL Team as a corpsman. I loved being a combat medic. But then I got commissioned as a warrant officer. And when you get commissioned as a warrant officer or limited duty officer, whatever type of officer you get commissioned as, and you're at 6, you can't stay there. You have to go to another team first, learn how to be that officer, then come back. So I went to Team 2, And then that was my time being away from 6. Then I came back to 6 and retired from 6.
Wow. It's amazing. Now, since you've been out and stuff, we know you've done a lot of adventure stuff, and you didn't stop, right? I mean, you've written a lot of books. I've seen a great amount of books. You also done training. You also do a lot of training, and it looks like you've put together a huge like survival type course or something like that. I mean, let's go ahead and talk about all that kind of stuff you got going on
Okay.
or had going
Um,
on.
I have written 22 books and I'm still writing. I'm writing a book now on woman warriors. It'll be my 23rd. And so the writing process, I figured a book a year after retirement is how I looked at it. I mean, that's not hard to do. And my English teacher would be rolling over in her grave if she ever thought I read a book. Never mind write a book, you know. But if you're really passionate about some subject and you really like that subject, you don't mind researching that subject and then just jobble down some notes, and then you put the notes in some cohesive order, and then you put the beginning of the story and the end of the story, and then make chapters out of your notes. It's just a process of filling it in. I did about a third the books alone, and about 2/3 the books with a co-author. I enjoyed the process much more with a co-author, somebody who is a more experienced writer than I am, because they liked being on that computer typing it out, and that process I didn't like as much. But it was it's something I really enjoyed. You know, now it's funny. A publisher asked me if I'd consider writing another book, and I told him, I said, to be honest, I don't know anything else. Anything I knew about, what I had a passion for, I already wrote about. I don't really have any other thoughts right now on writing another book. But it was fun. The history of the Navy SEALs, I really enjoyed doing that. The SEAL community asked me to write the Navy SEAL survival manual because they didn't have one. They said the Army's got one, the Marines
Oh,
have
wow.
one. Why don't you write one for the Navy? And
Damn.
then I started doing some fiction, some nonfiction, and it's really been it's a nice fun thing to do. It's not the same anymore now being a publisher because most people get the books on iPads or things like that.
A
And
lot of audiobooks now, right?
yeah, but it's still a lot of fun. And as far as the events, I have produced many events, actually more than anybody in the world at one point. The multi-day, multi-sport events called adventure racing, and these were hard events. And I was an athlete. And my first book, Quentin Kidd, who was a politician here in Virginia, where I live, where I am right now, he came up to me and said, Don, you race at these 10-day adventure races at the highest level. You teach people to race at this adventure racing academy you have, and you produce these races all over. Why don't you write a book on adventure racing? I said, no, I don't want to write a book. I don't want to be behind a computer. He said, you got to do it. Someone's going to do it. And you're the one doing all of that right now. It really overtook my life. I mean, going 10 days nonstop in the Himalayas or Ecuador or South Africa or somewhere, it was hard. It was the hardest thing I ever did physically. But so he said, I'll tell you what, I'll have someone type it up. You just do it on tape. So that kind of got me into the first book. Then the second book, I did a lot on tape and had someone else type it up.
Nice.
The typing up part was a part I don't
Didn't
care
want
for.
to. You're right. Correct. Yeah. So you kind of got like a ghostwriter, I guess, type of person.
Well,
But it
the
was more your
ghostwriter,
story, though.
yeah, I didn't want the ghostwriters. I actually found people who liked the topic as much as I did and were into it as much as I was, or more even. And
Right.
they were a big part of the book.
That's outstanding. Yeah. I mean, how awesome is it, anyways, to get to hear the whole story, you know, right up front? And I'm sure they got a lot more detail than the actual book probably did, but um, that's amazing. Now, I was watching a podcast and I seen that you ran like back to back triathlons or something. You did something crazy. I was like, wow, man. I mean, it's hard enough to do one, but you went ahead and ran two in one day. What now? What did you do?
Well, Brian, so a triathlon now, there's all different levels. You have sprint distance, international distance, Olympic distance, full distance. There's all different levels. But when
Right.
I first started doing triathlons, before I was a SEAL, there was only one triathlon, and that was the Hawaii Ironman. And that was a 2.4-mile swim, and then a 112-mile bike race, and then a marathon, 26.2-mile run. And I was so excited to be one of the first people in the world to do one of these. And I was just a kid, and I had two goals. One was to finish the Ironman, the toughest race in the world at the time. And the winning time at the time was 11 hours and 44 minutes. And Gordon Haller won, and he was the first champion. I had his poster in my bedroom. And I'd look at it, go, how does someone do 2.4 miles of swimming, 112 miles of biking, then a marathon in 11 hours and 44 minutes? So again, I did the visualization, and I looked at him. I said, not only how does he do one, how does he win it? So I had two goals without knowing what I was doing. It just shows the power of the mind, really. My goal was to finish the Ironman without stopping and to break the champion's record of 11 hours and 44 minutes. I had no business in the world thinking nobody who's never done anything like this, could break the champion's record. But my powerful mindset that was getting more and more powerful all the time said, that's your goal, go after it. And I ended up passing him on the bike ride. And I looked over him, I go, my God. I said, have a great race, champ. And I didn't feel deserving enough to pass him. And we still had another, probably 50 or so miles to do on the bike and then a marathon. But I was on fire when I passed him. I was thinking, oh, God, can't believe I passed Gordon Haller. Then it got me running.
Give you a little bit of fuel, huh?
Yeah. And I ran that marathon. I couldn't run that any faster. I was going as fast as I could. And then the crowd started screaming and yelling more and more and more. And there was somebody coming up because I didn't get past in that race. I have to backtrack a little bit because I came out of the water in 275th place. I had 274 people in front of me.
Wow. Yeah.
But I passed most of them. Nobody had passed me. So now I'm like 50th place. And my goal was to win. I wanted to win that race. And I passed Gordon Haller. Now I'm on fire. And now I'm like in 40th place. And I'm thinking, I got 39 more people to pass, And then the crowd was screaming and screaming. And one person was coming up to my side. And I looked over, and it was the champ, Gordon Haller. My God, I couldn't run any faster. I was going as fast as I could go. And he was going as fast as he could go. I was on the left side of the road. He was on the right side. And he passed me right before the finish line. And he came up to me and he hugged me. And he said, thanks so much for pushing me. I said, my God, you don't know how much you've pushed me all year long. Those words never left me. Thanks so much for pushing me. My hero told me that. And I just had a goal without knowing what I was doing to try to break his time of 11:44. Miraculously, I did it in 11:41. So I had these macro goals. When you do some big goal like an Ironman and you meet those goals, bring that down to the micro goal level. It's a stair step to get to the next macro goal. So I thought if I could do one Ironman in less than a half a day, I should be able to do two in a full day, was my thinking. I'm not very smart. It hurt a lot. So I did two full Ironmans in a day. So that's a 4.8 mile swim or a 16-mile paddle. It's your choice. Man. A 224-mile bike ride, and then two marathons, a 52.4-mile run. And at mile 32 on the run, I started seeing the white spots, the lack of oxygen. And I started getting woozy, and I started spitting up some bile, and I passed out. And when I woke up, these cyclists and runners were going by me. And I looked around. I said, I wonder why I'm sleeping outside. I don't know why I'm sleeping outside. Then I said, oh, my God, I'm in a double Ironman. I got up and the race and got the medal. And now jokingly, to some degree, I say all the times in my life before that, if every time I thought something was too hard or too challenging or too physically difficult, I was wrong. Because if something was too hard, my body would have done me the favor. I would have passed out. I would have got the rest I needed and then get up and finish what you're doing. So I use it as a lesson.
And something that I find crazy, and I learned a lot about myself becoming a Marine, is that point in time when you feel like, oh, I can't do it. But you really can, right? Like, and then you realize in your head, like, I can do this. Like, I think that a lot of humans give up at that point when they're like, oh, I feel this burn. I got to stop, but you can keep going, right? I mean, there is that level that I think a lot of people don't allow themselves to go to. But in order for you to become a SEAL, become a Marine, or any branch of service, really, you got to be able to push yourself that extra limit, because there's times when they're pushing and you're hurting so bad, but you got to keep pushing as well, because you got to get it done. You got to accomplish the mission. You got to, accomplish what you set out to do, those kind of things. And I imagine even for a SEAL, there's even another level that a lot of us don't even take ourselves to, that you even have to go to. But I think you touched a little bit that in another podcast as well. Can you touch a little bit that on here?
Sure, Brian. I know it's overused, but I do believe it that if someone says they can't do something, they're probably right. But if they say they can do something, they're probably right. You're self-fulfilling prophecy. I can't
Right.
do it. No, you're kind of right, because you've got the mindset you can't. And if you don't have the right mindset, you're probably not going to do it. You got to have the mindset that you can. And I think the only thing I ever saw in the SEAL community I disagreed with is a very famous popular slogan that you can do 10 times more than you once thought you could. And I think that number is too low. I think that number could be 100 or 1,000 times more than you once thought you could, because all you can base yourself or your predictions on what you can do is what you've done. And we can always far exceed what we've done in the past. And so if someone says, hey, you did a 250 marathon, we need you to do a 248. If I said I can't do that, there's no reason to say I can't do it. All I have to do is train a little bit more, a little bit harder, and go a little bit faster. And that's going to happen. But if someone says, as a non-runner, I was a non-runner when I first did my first marathon. I wasn't a runner. I just went out there to run Boston Marathon, which just took place, by the way. I ran Boston Marathon as my first running race, and I did it as a non-runner. And all I did was promise myself, put one foot in front of the other. All I had to do was tell myself I can put one foot in front of the other without stopping. There's no reason I can't do that. I'm a young guy. I can do that. And that's all I had to do is say, I can do it. But if I was one of those people, which are a lot of people, said I can't do it, I wouldn't even think like that. And I wouldn't even have the chance of even trying to make it through a marathon, especially as a non-runner.
Yep, I definitely try to correct my kids anytime they use that. I can't, because that word just it just sticks me. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, you can, and you can do it even better, right, than you think you can. So, I think that, like I said, it's just a human flaw that a lot of people are afraid of pushing themselves, or the thought that they might fail, right? I mean, or don't want to see if they can not fail. I don't know.
Yeah,
Um,
the fear of failure is huge. You don't. But I think I have an answer to help lessen that fear, and that is the macro goal, micro goal thing I was talking about. If you have I mean, as a grandfather now, if you have kids or you're talking to anybody, I always say pick some far-reaching, very, very lofty goal that's going to be almost impossible for you to think that you can accomplish. But then after that, set a whole series of micro goals. For
right.
instance, if you want to do an Ironman, okay, you got to learn to swim, bike, and run. So micro goal, go take swim lessons. Next micro goal, walk a mile. Next micro goal, buy a bicycle. Before you know it, you're going to be racing 5Ks, 10Ks, 100-mile bike rides, mini triathlons, mini biathlons. Before you know it, you're going to do an Ironman. And just pick a big, big goal. And a lot of micro goals will reach its way up to that macro goal, because you can be sure if you're 30, 40, 50, 60, or 70, there's people in their 90s who finished Ironmans now. There's people who finish with prosthetic legs, cancer survivors, and organ donors who can. So why can't most other people? There's no reason they can't unless they tell themselves they can't.
A lot of it has to do with the mindset. Our mind is very powerful, right? I mean,
Mm,
we can trick ourselves out of doing things. We can talk ourselves into doing things. Um, you know, our mind is very powerful, and we underestimate our minds a lot, I think, and how we're thinking. Now let's, I guess, switch it up a little bit now. With are you still involved in the whole, current events and everything going on in the world? We just got this whole Iran thing just happened. Um, you know, you still kind of in tune with all what's going on.
Absolutely,
Yeah,
absolutely. I make it a point to spend at least 2 hours a day, not just mainstream news, watching the alternative news and get the
sure.
full picture. I'm learning
Yes.
really, really to distrust even my old Fox News network. They're just not
Yeah.
allowed to go beyond too many borders. They're
Right.
they're allowed to say what's in between these two handrails, and they can't go further if it goes against the narrative. So
Yep.
I am very, very much in tune. Actually, I have to be on a show right after this podcast today and talk about what just happened with the attack. And we grew up as Americans, pro Americans, which I am, of course, and we hated Russia, we hated Iran. But now with the news becoming more open and we're seeing more than what's being allowed to be said,
Sure.
is now we're getting to see why Russia does what it does, why Iran just did what it does, and why Hamas and the Houthis and Hezbollah do what they do. And I think it's really healthy to get a better informed picture of what's going on. But yep, I know, Iran did that 300 strikes, 300 missiles, drones, cruise missiles, ballistic missiles. And on the face of it all, it's like, oh my God, those Iranians, we got to wipe them off the face of the earth. Can't believe they do that to poor Israel, you know. And they've been hitting Israel with the Houthis and Hezbollah and all the proxies. They've been hitting Israel. They are such a pain in the neck. Let's get rid of Iran. I mean, that is a way that our news outlets, what they give us as news is how one would tend to think. But now with other news sources coming out, there is another side to it. Not to say the other side's right, but there is more to that. And that is, yeah, Iran finally said to Israel, okay, you attacked our consulate. You actually had the gall to attack a consulate. You attacked the Iranian consulate on Syrian soil and you killed 12 people. We have to do something in retaliation, or escalation occurs faster because, hey, wow, we just killed all those people at the consulate. Iran's not doing anything. We could hit him again. We could hit him again. We can hit him again. So any country's going to retaliate on that. So Iran did the retaliatory strike. They shot over 300 drones, missiles, ballistic, and cruise missiles to Iran. But what was interesting, what the news is not reporting, that's very interesting. The drones they used were first generation, really slow, loud, noisy drones. They told the world they were going to do it, and they
Right.
had to wait for Ramadan to finish. So it was like 12 days or so after the attack. So they had 12 days notice to the world. Okay, we're going to probably attack. So all these slow moving drones are coming. Those are very easy to shoot down. And then the cruise missiles are so slow and bulky and to go 1,000 miles, 900 miles. It doesn't take much to shoot those down. Now, the ballistic missiles are different. Those are a little faster and those are harder to shoot down. And some got through and some didn't. But what Iran did is they didn't do what a lot of people would think they would do. They didn't attack civilian bases or civilian populations. They hit an airstrip, which is where the launch was set when they hit their embassy. All the others, they knew these were going to get shot out of the sky. Iran's the experts out there for the missiles, and they allowed these weapons to be shot. They knew they were going to be shot down, and the ones they hit, they went to desolate places. It caused no damage. One girl got some shrapnel, and a couple people were wounded, but no deaths or anything. It was pretty much, the world is saying, a lot of the world, it was a failure. Iran failed. The other side of the news is Iran didn't fail. They had to answer the attack Israel made. They had to answer it, but they didn't want escalation. They didn't hit cities. They didn't hit major populations. They just want to show a force. This is what we're able to do. Let's just call it quits right now. Tit for tat type thing. You don't hit us anymore. We don't hit you anymore. Let's leave it at that. But Netanyahu is most likely going to be going to prison after these wars are over for war crimes. 95% of the world is against him. 95% of the world is against us too.
Right.
And as long as he's at war, he's not going to jail. And as long as he escalates the war, makes it a little bit bigger, like hitting Iran, firing back and forth with the Houthis and Hezbollah, he's going to have the U.S. assistance. It's getting interesting now because Biden finally came out and said, if you're going to retaliate against Iran, I'm not assisting you. If he holds true to that, that means that Iron Dome, his air defense, is not going to be reloaded, and Israel can be wiped off the planet. So I do believe that today's the most dangerous day ever in the history of the planet, and tomorrow will be more dangerous because now with 9 countries with nuclear weapons and everybody trigger happy and everybody on the edge of war, it's just getting, no matter who our next president's going to be, I don't think we could survive with a president like we have now. I don't know how. It's such an embarrassment to see him talk to any world leader.
Right.
Such an embarrassment. But not only all the policies he put into place, but I don't think we'll be able to survive another term of him or anybody like him. But if we get a strong, powerful, well-respected leader, I think we're going to have a chance and a better standing in the world.
Yeah, I think, and I told my wife, I said, problems are going to come in the next couple of years in the worst ways. We're going to see the outcome of these people that made it across the border once they get themselves established and they're hunkered down where they're at and they know their surroundings and they're dialed in, things are going to be a little bit more, sketchy around our own communities right here in America.
They do have the sleeper cells out there now. Hezbollah, Hamas are big in Mexico. They've got hundreds they know about have come across the border. We don't know how many we don't know about. And the thousands of Chinese nationals from the Communist Party are here. And we know their intentions are to wipe out the grid system. When they get the word attack, our cells go down, our power goes down. That's what we're afraid of right now, that's what they're up to.
Yeah, especially how vulnerable we are, to a lot of these things. And our agriculture is being sold off to the Chinese, I'm just gonna call it how it is, I mean, we're setting ourselves up for a bad situation. Thinking that people don't have ill intentions against us. You better wake up. I mean, I've had to learn and understand history, right? In the Marine Corps, they very much give us an understanding of history and how we've got to where we are today and how we got there today and the blood that was shed and all the things that we've had to go through. I had to learn that stuff in the Marine Corps. And that made me have a major appreciation. But when things are starting to get into our own hometowns and, that's when it starts to get really scary, and these guys are putting up these mosques that we can't go into. They're building up all these crazy mosques and you and I can't go into them, right? I mean, there's no way, so
do not
it's just
enter zones in the Somali communities and Minnesota and these places. We're not allowed to, police aren't allowed to enter in those regions. You know what, Brian? I hate to say this against Americans. I don't really consider the people I'm talking about right now as Americans, though.
right.
I think the biggest threat we've ever had in our country is the far left. So right now, what they are allowing to happen, Trump,
Radicals,
I won't get political. Trump gave them a secure border. Okay. It wasn't completely secure, but quote unquote secure border.
Working on it.
This administration completely opened it up and welcome all these people through. They don't check anybody. They don't know where these people are, but they know they're bringing in the fentanyl. They know they're raping the girls and the boys and the women. They know the human trafficking, and they know people against our country, like you just stated. People going against our ways of life are coming in the country, and they're putting all of that second to getting a larger population in these cities. These cities that are mainly Democratic, because when the census is voted, when the census is counted, they don't count how many American citizens are there. They count how many people are there. And then they get more support and more representation in Congress. They're putting all the atrocities that's happening in our country second to getting more of a population in this country, so more people will eventually vote Democrat. It's
a
a
shame.
sin. Yeah.
It's absolutely shame. And I hate to say it too, man, because I swore to defend, and I always will hold my oath until I die, no matter what. Come on this soil and fuck around and find out type stuff. That's where I'm at with it, because I'll always stand firm on my feet and on my soil, and but it is, like I said, it is alarming, and it's hard to watch, because my gosh, anymore you go and watch some of these proceedings, and we look like a circus. We look like we got a whole bunch of clowns running the circus. It's a sad situation, and these long-term people that are sitting in these seats for years upon years, and now they've lost their way, because now it's about their money in their pockets. It's no longer about the people. It's sad to see that our country is driving it, and driving division amongst us, right? To make us hate each other, like, by putting this in front of us, by putting that in front of us. If that doesn't work, we'll put this in front of us. How divisive can we make these people?
Yeah.
It's hard to watch. It's really hard to watch, man. But I'll stand firm, and I'll keep talking, and I'll keep pushing in the right direction as long as I can. And we need as many as we can.
Yeah, that's no doubt you'll do that. We will all do. Americans, we will do that.
Absolutely.
True Americans like yourself. I mean,
Absolutely. And I have a lot of honor and patriotism for this country, and I always will, right? Until I go down. Is there things that we are shameful of? Absolutely. But you know what? I'm still prideful of being American and the world that I can create for our kids. And as a generation, I want to hand over our kids a better generation for them to live in. And that should be our goal for everybody.
That's right.
And it's just hard to watch us go backwards when we've gone so far forward. And now we're creating division, segregation, and vax, non-vaxxed, or we've put these labels on so many things now that people hate each other because they're labeled this, or they got this label, right? And it's crazy that we're getting so mixed up in all these kind of things and hating each other, while the enemy's just over there getting stronger, and they're working towards a mission and a goal, while we're all caught up in the semantics, the games that we get thrown out, or this is how it should be.
Putin, I mean, that guy, he's run that country for 25 years, and he's brought him from Soviet Union splitting up and him just being sole Russia to being one of 3 superpowers now. I mean, he's not a great example of a person by any means, or a leader by any means, but he does some things right. And one of the things is, I liked his answer on this. They said, so how do you guys deal with this wokeism that's destroying the United States? Putin laughed. He said, yeah, I think we had that for a couple of weeks before we stomped that out. They don't put up with that nonsense.
Right. No, yeah.
They won't buy from within, from their own people. Like what our own people is what's knocking us down right now.
No, absolutely.
Yeah.
But then again, is it our own people, or is it that we've allowed so many people to come in here, and now they're bringing their beliefs, their ways over here and enforcing it upon us? Sharia laws and things like that, like you said, Minnesota, all those places, you go to some of these places, don't even look like America anymore.
They want Sharia law imposed.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And people go research Sharia law a little bit, and you'll find out if you really want that in a town near you. No, absolutely not. But So what do you got going on for yourself nowadays, and what do you got yourself planned, and are you just enjoying retirement, or you're always engaged in something going?
I'd go nuts if I didn't have some projects going on. But
Right.
I have I'm hosting three TV shows right now, and one is called Surviving Man, and it's kind of like a combination of buds, survival training, and adventure race training, put in
Oh,
5 days, and they're getting really some hardcore PT and a lot of shooting, a lot of tactics, a lot of missions. It's hardcore. It's hardcore. And then we have a show that's launched off of that. It's called Surviving Man All Stars, where the champions of Surviving Man go against some other folks. So those are two shows. We just finished filming one in Tampa and in Belize, the country of Belize, off a dive boat. And then the thing I'm very, very, very passionate about is this thing I came up with called the mission. When I talk to people, like even my little grandson, when I talk to anybody, and a lot of people ask me what to do to become a SEAL or whatever, I said, well, no matter who you are, what you do, it's easy. All you have to do is four things in life. Four things. Every day, get up and do something that makes you stronger. You figure out what that's going to be. It could be 100 push-ups for the day. It could be going to CrossFit. It could be going to Pilates, but something. You just get stronger every day and measure it so you know you're getting stronger. Number two, every day do something to make yourself faster. If you can do 100 sit-ups in 2 minutes, do 105. If you're a runner, do fartleks, do mountain speed work, but just do something to make yourself faster. Number three, more importantly, every day do something to make yourself smarter. Like for me, I promise myself I do my weight workout and I do my trail runs or bike workouts in the afternoons. So I get stronger and faster. Post Everest. My times are all slower now. So now I have post Everest times. But every day do something to make yourself smarter. And the way I make myself smarter, I just stay up with what's going on in the world. I really want to know what's going on in the world, things we're talking about right now. And then I say, the most important thing is every day do something good for somebody. Just help somebody. If you're a little boy like my grandson, you see the lady across the street taking out a garbage, go help her, or go help her husband raking leaves, or help your mother do dishes. But just every day do something to make yourself valuable to somebody in a way that you can help them or do something good for somebody. Because if you're 9 and you want to go to be a SEAL, before you know it, you could just be the strongest, fastest, smartest guy there in selection, and you're the one everyone's going to want on the team because you're so used to doing good things for people. So that, with that said, doing something good for somebody I think is the most important. And we can all help people. We all have
yes.
strengths, we all have weaknesses.
Right.
But so I have this new show now called The Mission, and I take people, I tell them how to prepare a military style mission, a SEAL like mission, and I task them as a mission commander, the leader of the team. Whatever your passion is, it might be helping animal cruelty causes, helping vets with PTSD, who've been victimized, human trafficking, whatever your passion is, go out, use this military training you had on developing, creating a mission, and go out and make a significant difference and help these people raise awareness, raise funds, and see how you can keep that sustained. So right now I have 5 missions going out right now in the country. My hope is 5 years from now I'll have 100 missions, and
Wow.
just to get these missions going. Some are televised and some are not televised, but that's where my real passion is right now.
That's amazing, man. That is absolutely amazing. You just I there's no stopping you for sure. That's what I'm gonna say. I can see you going until you can't go anymore. Um, but man, I appreciate you. Really, I do. You're a true American hero. You're doing still great things. You're instilling great mindsets into people. You know, um, anytime you guys think you can't do it, go look at Don Mann's story and hear all the things he's done. When you think you can't do something, you can push yourself and make sure you go ahead and do it. But is there any last anything you would like to say before we head out?
Just I'd like to thank you, Brian, for all you're doing and putting out the good word you put out. And our country is strong. It's because of people like you. And I appreciate you. Thank you for having me on your show.
I appreciate you so much. And if you guys would like to go check out his website, it's right here, usfrogman.com. And that's man, MANN.com. Also, if you want to go check out his YouTube, which there's some really great content there, go over there and check out his YouTube channel as well. But once again, Don, I appreciate you, man. Thank you so much for all you do for us. And you have a great day. And hey, you can contact me anytime, man. I would love to, keep in contact with you. Even talk a little bit of what we were talking about. That stuff always intrigues me, and I love staying on top of it. But
thank you, Brian. Maybe someday I can introduce you to some of these mission commanders, let you hear what they're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. And you ever got anybody who wants to be on my show, please send them. I love getting everybody's stories out, because I think everybody has in this story, no matter who you are. But I think
Got
it's
a couple
it's
good people
important.
you'd like, I think.
Heck yeah, man. Send them my way. All right, Don. We'll appreciate you, brother.
Thanks,
if you could just hold tight real quick, make sure we got everything, and I'll be right there with you in a second. But appreciate you, man. All right, friends and fam. Well, that's going to wrap up another great episode. Great interview. My gosh, you guys go check out all his stuff. I'll put it up one more time. That way you guys can see. Here's his website, usfrogman.com. Also, go over and check out his YouTube page. Also, if you guys would like to check out any season of the episodes, you can check out the website, edasUSMCvet.com. And it's got season 1, season 2, also nonprofits on there, and as well as veteran-owned businesses. But anyways, you guys take care of yourself. Don't let the day kick your ass. Make sure you're out there kicking it. And we'll see you guys next time. All right, friends and fam.